Welcome to episode 11 of the Republic Brothers podcast. We're cutting through the noise, defending the truth. I'm Mike, joined by my brother Matt, and we break down the issues that matter most to conservatives. Today we're talking about the government shutdown, some royal family drama, Nick Fuentes, and more. Let's get started. So Matt, we'll start with our government shutdown update. We are officially up to 33 days now. The Senate adjourned last Thursday, meaning this shutdown is going to go to at least 34 days. The heat is on now since we have 42 million Americans who have officially lost their food stamps and people continue to work with no pay. In a series of Truth Social posts late Thursday night, President Trump called on Republican lawmakers to do away with the filibuster. The Democrats were fighting to do the same thing back in 2022. It sounds good in theory, but wouldn't we be afraid of the future when Democrats hold a majority? Then they could just roll out whatever ridiculousness they wanted, and if they hold a majority, we have no way to stop it. But right this minute, we wish we didn't need those 60 votes to reopen the government. It seems like a double-edged sword. So Matt, what's your take on the nuclear option that President Trump was talking about?
It sucks that you need 60 votes, mostly because there's only a couple sane Democrats. Normally, this wouldn't be that big of a deal. As far as getting rid of the filibuster, I think it's a terrible idea for exactly what you said. That will come back to bite us.
Yeah, I agree. And it's only a matter of time. I've seen a lot of social media posts of people saying, whoa, the Republicans could end this right now. They could end this right now and get rid of the filibuster. But that doesn't seem like a smart play long term.
Yeah, Republicans tend to be the party that wants to cut things. You know, if the Democrats took control again and only needed a simple majority and they could push through anything they wanted, do you know how much crap would be in those bills? It would bite a lot worse later than the joy of getting this done without them would. It's a terrible idea. Would not advise it. Hopefully they can convince a few other Democrats to break ranks with their own party, but they all seem to be scared.
Yeah, I've seen John Fetterman pushing really hard on trying to get the government reopened. I just still can't understand how people are blaming Republicans for this shutdown. The whole thing is crazy to me. Republicans keep voting yes to open the government. Democrats keep voting no. How is anyone in their right mind blaming Republicans or Donald Trump? Donald Trump doesn't have anything to do with this vote. This is Joe Biden's budget that we're voting on, and we're still arguing about it.
Well, it usually ends up hurting the party in power. That's typically the way this goes. Most people will just look at the president and say the president's a Republican and the government's closed, so it's Trump's fault and it's Republicans' fault. Obviously, that's not the case.
What's really crazy, too, I keep seeing these social media posts going around of people saying basically that when November 1st hit and their snap was turned off, that they were going to be attacking people and robbing people coming out of the grocery store.
Well, if that's the route they choose to go, I hope they face the consequences for it. Actions have consequences. If you assault somebody or rob somebody, you should pay the price for that.
Yeah, and I keep seeing these breakdowns, these different graphs and stuff of like all the food that people are buying with their SNAP benefits. And it's crazy. Lobster tails and steak. And like these people go to the grocery store and buy better cuts of meat with their SNAP money than I buy. It's ridiculous. It's fraud through and through.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing limits put on what they can buy. And we are seeing that a little bit. You know, I've seen countless TikToks of people complaining that they can't go buy their brownies or cookies, when in reality, you actually can. Everything you need to make brownies and cookies is still available on Snap. Things like flour and eggs and baker's chocolate. I just don't want to see them being able to buy absolute crap, because those are empty calories for the most part that we're funding and they overeat. We do have a weight issue in this country, so we should be taking the junk food off. I would much rather they bought vegetables and raw meat. Ground beef, fine, but get rid of the junk food.
It's funny you say that too, because I keep seeing these videos on social media of people saying, oh, here's how to make your dollar go a little bit further. Here's some items that you can buy that are super cheap so that you can make, XYZ meal at home. They're saying, get this meat and rice and this and that, and you can make a 3-4 course meal for 4 people on $20 or even less in some cases. Why were they not doing this in the first place? Why are we buying our cosmic brownies and our famous Amos cookies instead of just buying the ingredients to make them?
Buying the ingredients to make them takes work. They don't want to work.
Yeah, we don't want to have to turn our stove on.
The other thing with this government shutdown is just how bad this is going to get for air travel, I think. There are 13,000 air traffic controllers working without pay right now, and because they're considered essential, they must continue work. On November 1st, about 4,500 flights were delayed and more than 500 were canceled completely. Half of the 30 major airports in the U.S. are currently having staffing shortages. It was so bad in Newark on Sunday morning that they had to issue a ground stop, and average delays were extending beyond 3 hours. The longer this shutdown goes and the closer we get to the holidays, the worse this could get. Keeping in mind that if it went that far, you'd be well over a month of air traffic controllers not getting a paycheck. How many people can survive a month without getting a paycheck? Add in, they're going to get extremely busy over the holiday period with people traveling to visit family and friends. This could get really bad.
Yeah, and I feel bad for all these people that are working that are not getting paid. I truly feel bad for those people. What I don't feel bad for is the people that are not getting their SNAP benefits that do not need them. The people that don't want to go to work, the people that buy stuff that they really don't need with it, the people that are frauding the system and taking advantage. I do not feel bad for those people whatsoever. There are some people that need them, and I'm okay with that. I heard a story listening to Benny Johnson's podcast. He was saying, as a Christian, you are supposed to be charitable, but when the government forces you to pay taxes or you go to jail, you're not really being charitable. You're not doing it out of the goodness of your heart. The government is forcing you to do it. And that in turn creates an entitlement with the people who are getting SNAP benefits. They feel like they deserve it and they need it, even though most of them wouldn't need it if they would just get up and go do something.
Yeah, we're going to have an episode one of these days on the victim mindset and the entitlement culture we've built. It's really tough to see people holding themselves down and then blaming others for it. But what can you do? These people are lost in some cases and are disconnected from reality.
Yeah, I saw a video of this girl online saying that she was born into that life and she has no way to get out of it. And she says that she works, and I'm sure that she does, but her mindset is that she'll never escape from it. And we just keep having kids and not trying to break that cycle. And just over and over again, these kids grow up seeing their parents on SNAP. And as soon as they get old enough to get it, they apply for it too. And we just start the cycle all over again.
The U.S. has the greatest system in the world. No other country has as much upward mobility as the U.S. Ben Shapiro has made this point before, and people got really mad at him for it. There are 3 things you have to do to ensure you don't live your entire life in poverty. 1, finish high school. That's a tough one, I know. Number 2, no kids before marriage. Also a really tough one, right? And number 3, you won't believe it, is get a job. So I don't want to hear it. It's not that difficult to do those 3 things. You should be capable of moving up in class.
Yeah, it's all a series of decisions that you make. And if you are in your 30s or 40s and you're on SNAP, it is a direct result of the decisions that you have made. It's not anybody else. The system did not hurt you. You put yourself in that position.
If you spend your entire life in poverty, I am very confident in saying you are horrible with money.
Yeah, true.
Well, we've been going on government shutdown every episode, so I wanted to move on to some family drama, specifically the royal family. We got news that King Charles has stripped his brother Andrew of the title of prince and evicted him from the royal estate. It's a bit of a shocking twist to this story, but I don't think it's all that big of a surprise. All of this is kind of an attempt to quiet the noise around Andrew's links to Jeffrey Epstein. Prince Andrew had faced scrutiny on and off over the last 15 years for his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein, but this last step by the royal family comes after the memoir of Virginia Giuffre was released, and in it, Andrew is accused of sexual assault. Now, it's worth noting, Andrew claims to have never met her and denies these claims. It's believed the palace acted on this now because of what they perceive as serious lapses in judgment, while they do acknowledge he denied the claims.
Was Prince Andrew giving any pushback on any of this, or did he just say, okay, here's my keys to the house, I'm out?
We haven't heard anything directly from Prince Andrew, but given the king gave him an eviction notice, he can complain all he wants. He's going to have to go. And given the king holds the most power in the royal family, it's kind of his way or no way at all.
So how much time was Prince Andrew spending with Epstein?
Well, we don't know exactly how much time he spent with him, but we know Prince Andrew did go to Epstein Island. I'm a bit shocked by this, as I said, but I get why they're distancing. It's a really bad look to be great friends with Jeffrey Epstein. And having visited the island, I would guess that got him some more heat. Now, I don't know what's going on with the royal family. It seems like there's a lot of drama. We've had Prince Harry and Meghan Markle and all of that drama that's gone on over the years. Now, Prince Andrew as well. What's going to be the next story? It seems like Prince William can keep his nose clean, though.
So I'm reading this article from the New York Post, and it's saying that Andrew has always denied any wrongdoing. Do you think maybe that the king has some, let's say, insider information, or maybe he knows something that the rest of us don't know, and that's why they took this step?
Entirely possible, but we don't know. And yes, Prince Andrew has denied the allegations, but Virginia Giuffre took her own life, and her memoir was released after she passed, and it was quite detailed. So it was kind of a believable story. We don't know for sure that it's true, but given we know some of the really bad things Epstein did, I could understand the royal family seeing it as a lapse in judgment just to be friends with someone like Jeffrey Epstein.
Well, speaking of some international news, the United Nations said last Friday that the U.S. airstrikes on alleged drug trafficking boats in the Caribbean and the Pacific Ocean violate international human rights law and must stop. In a statement to ABC News, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, said that the attacks breach international law and call for an investigation into the strikes. He said, quote, "These attacks and their mounting human cost are unacceptable. The U.S. must halt such attacks and take all measures necessary to prevent the extrajudicial killing of people aboard these boats, whatever the criminal conduct alleged against them. Under international human rights law, the intentional use of lethal force is only permissible as a last resort against individuals who pose an imminent threat to life." He added, based on the very sparse information provided publicly by the U.S. authorities, none of the individuals on the targeted boats appeared to pose an imminent threat to the lives of others or otherwise justified the use of lethal armed force against them. The White House Deputy Press Secretary Anna Kelly told ABC News that President Donald Trump is working to eliminate threats to U.S. security. Quote, "The UN has failed at everything from operating an escalator to ending wars. It's ridiculous that they're now lecturing President Trump and running cover for evil narco-terrorists trying to murder Americans. The president acted in line with the laws of armed conflict to protect our country from those trying to bring poison to our shores, and he is delivering on his promise to take on the cartels and eliminate these national security threats from destroying lives. Since September, President Donald Trump and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth have executed over a dozen military strikes against boats in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific, arguing they are anti-drug and counterterrorism measures. In the latest and most deadly strike, Hegseth said the U.S., quote, carried out a lethal kinetic strike on yet another narco-trafficking vessel operated by a designated terrorist organization in the Eastern Pacific. This vessel, like all the others, was known by our intelligence to be involved in illicit narcotics smuggling, was transiting along a known narco-trafficking route, and carrying narcotics. So, Matt, does the UN have a point? Do we need to stop, or are we justified in these attacks?
I have said repeatedly on this podcast that I am happy for these strikes to continue. Now, the UN says it's an unnecessary killing. Well, these are individuals carrying things that will kill thousands. All of that just so they can make a profit, so they can kill people to make money, but we can't stop them from making that profit off of dead Americans. It's all a bit ridiculous, and it's just kind of more proof that the UN is useless at this point. As far as us stopping, I don't see it happening because the UN has no way of stopping us.
So there's literally nothing the UN can do. Even if we continue to make these strikes, there's nothing the UN can do about it.
Essentially, no. I believe I've said on this podcast before that the United Nations is kind of useless. And the reason for that is there's different councils in the United Nations, but the only one that can really do anything that's binding is the UN Security Council. And when you look at who the members on that council are, nothing will ever get done because the US, China, and Russia are in it, along with the UK and France, and each of those countries has veto power. So anytime something happens, one of those countries will always just veto it, and nothing will ever get done. The UN General Assembly can issue resolutions, but they're non-binding, so you don't really have to listen to it. And when you consider the UN really doesn't have any enforcement arm, there's not much they can do. It's pretty useless. They kind of negotiate as the mediator, so diplomacy is kind of something they do, but other than a little bit of mediation and doing some investigations to find facts, they aren't really helping a whole lot.
So I assume that we're not going to see Trump back down on this at all. He's going to continue with the strikes and continue to protect American citizens from these drugs.
I think there's no chance Trump will back down on this, and based on the deputy press secretary's comments, it sounds like they're going to continue this. At some point, the terrorists will figure out that if they continue doing what they're doing, they are going to keep getting shot at, and eventually their behavior will change.
You would think at this point they would have learned by now. With the UN being pretty much useless at this point, are we going to see any changes?
There is talks of reform that go on with the UN every once in a while, but they don't really ever go anywhere. People have had ideas of changing it up, in particular the Security Council, because that's the side of the UN that could potentially do something. And the Security Council was created in 1946 after World War II, and it was giving seats to the main powers at the time, which is why you have 5 permanent members, because they were the powers in the 40s. But every time you get to talks of reform, those 5 countries don't want to give up the veto power, so it doesn't go anywhere. And there's big questions about who you would potentially add to that list of countries on the Security Council. There's been discussions about, rather than having individual states represented on the council, you would have areas or regions. So, for example, the EU would have a seat, North America would have a seat, but again, why would a country like France or the UK or the US give up that power and give up the veto option?
Doesn't sound to me like there's going to be any changes really made.
Yeah, I can't see anything happening to it anytime soon.
Well, we got that out of the way. So we had a conversation 2 episodes ago about Candace Owens and some of the things that she said. We kind of debated a little bit whether or not she's anti-Semitic, based on some of the things that she said. Well, I want to kick it up a notch this time. I don't think either one of us are going to argue about whether this guy is a piece of garbage or not. Now, who am I talking about? Nick Fuentes, of course. He's one of those super far-right conservatives that the rest of us look at and wish he would please just shut up. So let's go through his history. Fall 2019, the quote-unquote Groyper War begins. Fuentes has his group of followers, called Groypers, target conservative events like TPUSA and heckle and harass Charlie Kirk and his guests with provocative and controversial leading questions about immigration, Israel, LGBTQ rights. Fuentes wanted to expose Charlie Kirk as a, quote, fake conservative. These people are terrible people. They target people online and harass them. And it's not just the left that they harass. It's anyone who disagrees with them and anyone who isn't far right enough for them.
So he does the same things that the far left does.
Correct. Groypers blame the mainstream conservative movement as well as the political left for what they view as destroying white America. Fast forward to February 2020, Fuentes founds the America First Political Action Conference, which is described as a white nationalist alternative to mainstream conservative conferences.
So he calls himself a white nationalist.
Basically, yeah.
Wow.
This guy is not shy about his opinions. Later in 2020, his YouTube channel gets banned for hate speech violations. November 2022, he has dinner with Kanye West and Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago. I don't know what Trump was thinking with this one. Both of these dinner guests had to be terrible company, and Trump caught a lot of flack for this. Now, Trump did say later that he didn't really know who Fuentes was at the time, and that Fuentes showed up unexpectedly. But Fuentes criticizes Trump for not being radical or far enough to the right.
Well, if you want to win elections, you have to be somewhere near the middle. Trump is fairly conservative on most issues, but it's kind of crazy to think that Trump isn't right enough. As far as the dinner with Kanye hadn't had a complete meltdown at that point, I don't think. He was on his downward slide, but having dinner with someone isn't terrible, especially if Trump is saying he didn't know who he was.
Yeah, and a lot of people gave some pushback saying that there's no way that Trump didn't know who he was. I don't know the whole story there. I would like to think that if Trump did know who he was, that he would not have had this dinner with him. But the story I saw also said that, again, Fuentes wasn't invited. He showed up unexpectedly as a guest. Ever since then, though, Trump has tried to distance himself from Fuentes. Fuentes, though, has actually tried to distance himself from Donald Trump. Hence the quotes about Donald Trump not being far enough to the right. He says that Donald Trump is weak as a conservative.
Well, and Trump also has won awards from minority communities. That doesn't really go along with white nationalism, does it?
No, not at all. That brings us to October 2023. He visits Texas and reports state that he often praises Hitler and questions the Holocaust. He has called for a, quote, holy war against Jews and compared the 6 million killed by the Nazis to, quote, cookies being baked in an oven. He wants the U.S. government under authoritarian Catholic Taliban rule and has been vocal about his disdain for women, Muslims, and the LGBTQ community and others. This guy also said that he wants to marry a 16-year-old because, quote, that's when the milk is good.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a shocker.
Yeah. And I don't even have all the stuff that this guy has done. This was just a quick, like, boom, 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 boom run through.
Something about being an extremist really makes you hate Jews for some reason.
I don't know where it comes from, but yep.
That's an interesting one because we're supposed to question everything, but then we get concrete evidence that the Holocaust did happen, and now we don't believe it.
Yep, and it just keeps getting worse. So keep in mind the comment that I just said, what he said about 16-year-olds. Fast forward 13 months later, and he posts on X, quote, your body, my choice, forever, directed at women, which leads to the leak of his address and a confrontation outside of his house. In a video he made, he says, quote, "Hey, B-word, we control your bodies. Guess what? Guys win again, okay? Men win again. There will never, ever be a female president. It's over. Glass ceiling? Dude, it's the ceiling made of effing bricks. You will never break it. Your stupid face keeps hitting the brick ceiling. We will keep you down forever. You will never control your own bodies." Now, it's people like this that make the rest of us conservatives look bad. We do not agree with this idiot or anything that he has to say. And I'm sure, like you mentioned earlier, that it's the extreme leftists that do the same thing. All the people that are, just to the left of center say the same thing about their extreme left people.
Yeah, but there's fewer people in the center left. I'm curious what happened in this guy's life that makes him hate women like this. I think you and I would kind of agree that it's entirely possible we have a female president. We kind of said that about Japan, but Japan just elected a female. I do think we will have a female president one day. As far as the controlling their bodies, I'm curious, in what way does he control women's bodies? I mean, women can still go get an abortion if they want, if that's what he meant.
I'm not sure exactly what this quote was in reference to, but either way, I mean, that's just a vile thing to say.
Yeah, and you shouldn't be trying to push people down. You should be trying to lift people up, but clearly he'll push you over and then kick you while you're down.
Yeah, this guy was one of the guys after Charlie Kirk was assassinated that came on his show and was saying that he thought that Erica Kirk was responsible for it and that he didn't agree with the way she was grieving and that she came out too quick and just like jumped in and took over his business. And I forget exactly what the direct quote was, but he was basically saying, "Oh, well, I'm just saying what everybody else is thinking. Why is she, jumping into his podcast and jumping into his business? And, it seems like she doesn't care."
Well, you only see her for a brief amount of time. You don't know. She could be sitting at home crying her eyes out right now for all you know.
Yeah, exactly.
And everyone grieves differently. So, yeah, that's a bit shameful as well. You should always kind of leave the family of a victim alone. Give them their privacy. They're going to be mourning. Let them do it in their own way. I guess it's a good thing he hates everyone equally, though, right?
He set up this whole social media campaign to attend these TPUSA events and ask these crazy questions. Like, Charlie Kirk had a gay man sitting up there with him, and one of these groypers showed up and asked the guy about anal sex. Like, what does that have to do with anything? I don't remember exactly what he asked him about, but he led the question with, "How is anal sex helping us with XYZ?" And it's like, really? And this was something that Nick Fuentes set up and told his followers to go and ask these kinds of questions. You want to talk about a cult? His followers legitimately might be in a cult. This whole Nick Fuentes and his group, the way they follow him blindly and do some of the stuff that he asked them to do is crazy.
Yeah, that does sound a bit like a cult. You couldn't get me to go ask somebody that question.
Yeah. So, and then let's talk about just 2 months ago, he publicly states, quote, "Perfidious Jews should be executed." Then he asked, "What is Jew synonymous with as a verb?" It means to cheat, to lie, act in bad faith as though it's second nature. I mean, if that's not anti-Semitic rhetoric, I don't know what is. I can say honestly, even from our conversation about Candace Owens, that I wasn't fully convinced that she was anti-Semitic. With this guy, it's like, dude, come on.
Well, when you are a self-proclaimed white nationalist, I guess it's not much of a debate.
Just a month later, last month, in October, Spotify removed his America First podcast for repeated hate speech policy violations. He's not officially banned from the platform and being on, other shows and stuff like that, but they went back and deleted all of his shows with his awful rhetoric.
And what percentage of his shows do you think got deleted? I'm going to guess most of them if this is some of the stuff he talks about.
I'm not sure on the exact number, but I know there were quite a few episodes that were removed. If you ever get a chance, I'm telling you, listen to him for 15 minutes and you'll be like, man, this guy is a cancer. These are just a few examples of the things that this guy has said. In summary, this guy's a piece of garbage. He's a terrible person, and why anybody would want to follow or support him is beyond me. He's publicly said the N-word on his podcast multiple times. Not just like here and there. He uses it freely. He's called people names, called for white people to rise up and dominate America, called women and Jews all kinds of things. This is truly a guy who is all the things that everyone says he is. And anyone who supports this guy, please zoom out and look at the whole picture.
Yeah, I would agree with basically everything you said there, but I think we would also agree we don't want him to be deplatformed. The best way to combat terrible speech is with more speech. Let him talk and reveal his true self. People should be able to make better decisions and not follow along with some of the things he says, but some do, and those people will eventually face the consequences of their decisions.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, well, that is enough about Nick Fuentes. We could honestly go on with the stuff that he's done for a lot longer. Let's get to the end of the show here, our blind ranking segment. So tonight we are doing potential Republican nominees for 2028.
Sounds like fun. I know who's going number one.
All right, so we will kick things off here with Ron DeSantis.
Number two.
Number two, okay.
Good choice, but I'm leaving number one open for one particular individual. You can probably guess who it is.
I have a good idea. Next, we'll go with Ted Cruz.
Not bad. Not as good as DeSantis, but I would go 4 here.
Okay, 4 for Ted Cruz. Next up, I have a feeling this is your number one, J.D. Vance.
Number one.
Number one.
Left that spot open just for him.
Yep. Next, we have Vivek Ramaswamy.
I would be happy with Vivek. I would go 3 there.
Okay, so we're going to go Vivek at 3, and that puts number 5 as Marco Rubio.
Perfect list.
I like it. I think I would have ranked it exactly the same, given the same questions. So, yeah, not bad. J.D. Vance at 1, Ron DeSantis 2, Vivek 3, Ted Cruz 4, and Marco at 5.
Yep, that's perfect. And maybe DeSantis as JD's VP choice?
I'd be good with that. Well, that is the end of episode 11 of the Republic Brothers podcast. Here's our wrap up. Government shutdown is on day 33. The UN is upset with Trump and his drug boat attacks, and Prince Andrew is out. If you enjoyed today's conversation, make sure to follow the Republic Brothers podcast on social media, leave us a rating, share this episode with a friend. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.